Hi, I'm Bryan Hitch, and for the first time since I drew it, I'm going to read Justice League #1. JLA #1, in fact, because Justice League #1 Jeff Johns did with Jim Lee ages ago. This is the new, cooler version. The first thing we notice, actually, is this really big cover. And there's no other reason for this than that I wanted to draw it. I actually asked Dan, I sent him a sketch and said, you know, am I insane? Can we do this? And I fully expect him to say, no. And he said, sure. I actually drew it on 3 boards. This one was a single image, and then there was these 3 on one and those 4 on the other. And my drawing board is literally only this big. So when I was inking it, I was literally inking it spread out, you know, like this, because I had to keep sections of it stuck together so as I could get the join. So it was a bit of a nightmare to do, but actually one of the most fun things I've done in a long time, and it kind of put me in the right frame of mind for drawing the interior stuff. The first page has a little interesting backstory to it, is that I drew the layout for that page something like 3 years ago, long before I even thought about drawing JLA. I was just sitting doodling one day with a cup of coffee on a sheet of layout paper, and I drew that kneeling figure of Superman in all the debris with the idea that something had destroyed the Earth and him almost with it. And when I came to actually write and draw this book, and I was starting with something like that, I thought, hang on a minute, I've drawn that. And so I hunted through piles of layout paper, and I found the layout for it and just reused it. So it was one of the easiest pages I had to work out. Oh God, the Daily Planet scene. That was just huge fun. I suppose that was one of those scenes where it wasn't necessarily absolutely needed for the story. I just wanted to draw a Lois and Clark moment. You know, I could have had Superman just arriving at the Infinity Corporation building, but this idea of the invitations, you know, that could have been solved without the need for a 2-page scene in the Daily Planet. But quite honestly, I just wanted to draw a 2-page scene in the Daily Planet. Oh, look at that, a room full of dead Supermen. Well, actually, originally it was going to be a pile of almost dead Supermen. Then I realized, in fact, what was I going to do with all of these almost dead Supermen when the storyline occurred? Because there was then going to be about 60 almost dead Supermen. So I thought, well, actually, you know, I better make sure they're all dead. Then they don't have to come back. And then you get the moment with the dying one that comes through. So it's a more powerful moment for that. But really, it was originally going to be about 60 or 70 semi-dead, if not actually dead, then very mostly dead Supermen. You know, as much as we're getting focused on the Rouse storyline in issues to come, you know, there's an awful lot of stuff set up in issue 1 that really isn't going to start reaching fruition until possibly even after the Rouse storyline. So there's nothing in this whole issue that isn't part of a bigger story. There's setup here that will get payoff later on, but trust me, it's not just there for the sake of being there. So all this stuff with the dead Superman and the Infinity Corporation, it has far bigger kind of ramifications than the current storyline. The Parasite fight actually is an interesting situation. I mean, I needed a big action scene for, you know, to introduce all the JLA characters and how their powers work and how they work together. But the Parasite isn't as throwaway as you think he is. That's all I'm saying. But it wasn't just there for the sake of having somebody to fight in issue 1. There is a purpose to that, and you won't find out about that till issue 7. Actually, one of my favorite moments of this actually was the bit where Green Lantern, the Parasite's been kind of siphoning off all their powers, and Green Lantern, having been unconscious for several pages, you know, goes up and says, you know, you're full of green energy, let me show what you can do with that, and pulls all the green energy out of the Parasite and beats him up with it. So there's some cool moments, I think, at least in terms of character, not the drawing. The drawing's horrible. Actually, one of the things that actually takes a lot of thought, and you don't realize till you're looking at it in color, is that when you're dealing with so many characters that have so many primary colors, you have to think about how you place them in a panel, because if you put Superman on one particular part of a panel and the Flash standing in front of Superman's billowing cape, then you've got the red cape on the red Flash, and Flash disappears. So you have to kind of start separating them within the confines of the composition and the storytelling. Still have all that stuff make sense, but not have their costumes contrast. If you're not careful, you can just end up with a coloured mess instead of a group shot. Actually, I liked, when I drew it anyway, I really liked the double-page spread of the cathedral arriving. Before I started drawing it, I had no idea what it was going to look like, and yet it looks like exactly how I'd want it to look. And I don't know, that's an unconscious process. It looks like a sword, it looks like a star, It looks like a cross, you know, it has all those elements, and yet I didn't go in there with the intention of trying to design something that looked like this. Well, when you don't see him again until really clearly until issue 2, but again, I didn't pre-design him. I just started drawing the shot that he was first in. But with the design of that, there were kind of elements where you had to make him look like he was potentially Kryptonian. So there's the idea of a chest emblem. I didn't want a cape, but the idea of something flowing from his body, cape-like, was part of it. And I kind of liberally borrowed Apollo's hair and the halo around him that I used for Apollo in The Authority. I liked that white hair, white glowing hair and halo look. So kind of borrowed that, and the idea of Rao as a sun god anyway kind of works with it. But I didn't want him to look like a superhero, but I didn't want him to be too far removed from the idea of a Kryptonian superpowered costume. So all of those things kind of went into what ultimately came out. That's issue 1. One thing I will say is that there isn't really anything wasted in here. This is a setup for the whole of JLA, not just the story with Rao. So if you think that there's, go through it, there'll be points where you think, oh, look, he did know what he was doing after all. It isn't like Lost. So, yeah, hope you're enjoying it, JLA 1.
Click subscribe to DC All Access and then head to your local comic shop to pick up a copy of The Sandman Overture issue number 6. But if reading on your tablet is more your speed, make sure you download a digital copy, which also includes the entire first issue in black and white of Vertigo's new surreal alien series, Twilight Children.